Good evening, class. We're so glad to have you joining us. And I missed all of you last week, and I hope you missed me just a little bit. But we're glad to be back tonight. We are continuing with the tribe of Asher. And tonight we are at note 30. So while you're getting your notes and turning to page 6, note 30, let me just share with you that understand that our classes are basically supported by your offerings. And so wherever you are watching us, whether you are here in person or whether you're watching from a long distance or watching locally, you are able to give in response to the teaching you receive. That's how these classes are made available to you. You can either give online, you can drop it in the box in the lobby, the drop box, you can drop it in the Joash chest, or however you want to do it. Just make sure that you will mark it for Wednesday evening class. We'd appreciate that. Okay, we are at the peoples of Asher. We're talking about people groups who are descendants of Asher, one of Jacob, Israel's sons. So the very first people group is the Asir, and they are ancestors of Scandinavians. Scandinavians. And the Asir, who were ancestors of the Scandinavian people groups, came from Scythia. And so you keep looking back to this map because it's so important. Because what we know, and I pray that if you're at home and you don't have this, that you call and we will get it to you. But this area of Scythia, we know, is where the tribes, the northern tribes of Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, they were exiled. And so we can basically trace their migration from the area of exile into where they ended up. The second people group is the Asii, and guess where they came from? Also Scythia. And some of the people in this people group remained in Scythia. So there are ancestors of this Asii still in Scythia, countries that make up Scythia today. Then we have the Ansis, and they were a leading family of Goths, Goths, Khazars, and Parthians. We also have the Aorsi, also in the area of Scythia. So their descendants are today in the area of countries, modern nations that make up that area in Scythia. We have the Asianoi, and this is kind of an interesting group because they're found today in Scythia east of the Caspian Sea. So they're in this area, and when you understand where this is, we call the East, the Orient. So you see the tribe of Asher is widely spread. Any questions about the people groups of Asher? Now we're going to look at the clans of Asher. Remember, the clans of Asher are descended from the sons of Asher. So you have Asher, and then you have his sons, and then you have now the sons underneath those. So we have the clans of Asher. We have Jimnah. And he gave rise to the Ammonoi. which was a Vandal group in lowland Scotland and England. So there are members, descendants of the tribe of Asher, even today in the lowland area of Scotland and England. The Jesui equal the Heise, and guess what? They're also but now they are a Vandal group in lowland Scotland and England, but they have a little bit different name because they're a little bit different clan. And I've shared this before. There are people who are families, close families. And then I gave an example last week of my own family. And you can visit those graves and you can walk, and it's a family plot, and you'd never know it because we had our grandfather and his brother decided to change the spelling of their name. And so their brothers don't spell their last name the same way. So you can understand, can you understand why clans, and they're coming at different times, and they're from the same group, but they don't spell their name the same, so sometimes they get really changed. So from Jimna, now we have Jesui. They're in the same basic group, they're in the same basic area, but they're a different clan by name. Then you have Barayag, who are the Brigantes. And they are in Celtic Britain. They're also found in Ireland. So you have some people groups of Asher in Ireland. They are found in Gaul, which is modern day France. And they are also found in Switzerland. So again, clans coming from Berea, but found in different areas. You also have the Brigans, also coming from Berea. And what they are now a branch of Brigantes. So in other words, they came from the Brigantes, and guess what? They kind of branched off into their own little group. You have the Brigus. They're also a Brigantes, but they're the Brigantes who went to Britain. This is kind of an interesting thing, because you have Brigus, who are Brigantes of Britain and ancient Turkey. You know that Turkey's a far piece from Britain, but these are same people groups. How do we know? It's called DNA. And the only way that this DNA would be the same in this group in Turkey as it is in Britain is why? Because they have the same DNA. That's how they say, well, you know, they're absolutely related. And if you've ever done your DNA and then you get the report, and then if occasionally you'll get an email message, right? You have a DNA relative, and you look at it, and it's like, my goodness, they're halfway around the world. But guess what? The DNA says what? You're related. And then you have the Boreoi, which is another Vandal group, the Baragas Variag, who are also a people group among the Varangians, and all these people have become Vikings in Russia. So now you've got descendants of the tribe of Asher in Russia. You have the Varakan, which is a Khazar group of Russia. Okay, so they're Khazars in Russia, but they're descended from Asher. You have the Warings, and again, they come from Berea. So what you're seeing is this is a son of Asher, and yet you're seeing them really spread out. And so they are a Scandinavian group in Anglo-Saxon England. So they're all they have a common ancestor, Beriah, but notice they're found in Turkey and Britain, and in France, and Switzerland, and Ireland. Okay. And then you have another son, Heber or Hever, same, because you know Bet and Vet are the same, what? Bet and Vet are the same letter in the Hebrew language, okay? So sometimes you might find it as Heber, other times you'll find it as Hever or Caber. And they are found in Wales. And they are a Vandal group. You have another son, Malkiel. Malkiel equal the royal Siths. In other words, guess what? They're the kings, queens of Scythia. They were the royalty when they were in Scythia. And from them you get the Badaloi, which was a Khazar group. You get the Basilia, which is a very interesting word because how many have ever heard the word basilica? Okay, it has to do with religious groups. So somewhere along the line they just were called, for some reason that was the name that was attached to them, Basilia. And they are found in Scandinavia. And this people group is very interesting, the Sakarakai. Now right away, what do you see? The Sakarakai. They have reached all the way back to what? Isaac, Yitzhak. So somewhere, way back, they have, this people group from Asher has gone all the way back, and somewhere they said, there's something about Isaac. So they were called Sakarakai, and they were in East Scythia. Now this is what's very important, because if they remained in East Scythia, they would have had, right away you see something, they would have had a longer attachment to the knowledge passed on to Isaac, right? Because they wouldn't have migrated and merged with other people groups and they would have kept more of a family identity that's been passed on. They probably didn't even remember why. They just, there's something here, this is who we are. The sixth son, Amal, and I want to, because this is Amal, son of Helam of the tribe of Asher, and in 1 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, the 35th verse. And the sons of his brother Helam were Zophah, Imnah, Shalesh, and Amal. It's kind of interesting here because Amal was son of Helam of the tribe of Asher. And strangely enough, and I've given you these on your own time, you can go if you want to look up a certain tribe and just kind of really flesh out everything you can find about it. They were the ruling family of the Ostrogoths. That was the Eastern Goths. And so they were, again, a ruling family. Again, I want you to keep remembering something. Remember, it said you'll be the head and not the tail. You'll rise to the top wherever you go. You'll be rulers. And indeed, that happened. Okay, any questions about the clans of Asher? Okay, so after study, we have come to the conclusion that the Irish are Asher. Okay, most of Asher today are Irish, mixed to some degree with Dan, D-A-N, and Judah. In other words, if you would take DNA of most Irish people of Irish or Irish descent, you would see that many of them are of the tribe of Asher. In other words, their DNA would go back to the people groups of Asher. They would be mixed to some degree with Dan, and what we know about Dan is Dan went very early, Dan left very early in ships, and much of Dan ended up in Ireland, and also Judah, particularly the Zara line of Judah. Remember, the Zara line of Judah left Egypt before the Exodus. We do know that. And they went into the area of Iberia and then went on up the whole, in other words, when we looked at that, so we're pretty sure that the Irish are Asher mixed with Dan and Judah. Two famous United States presidents were of Irish descent. And they are presidents in most of our lifetimes, okay? One of them, of course, was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, R-E-A-G-A-N. And he was the grandson of Irish Catholic immigrants from County Tipperary. And Tipperary is located in southeast Ireland, and that's not supposed to be a famous son. It's a famous song. Begins with, "It's a long way from Tipperary." It's a long way, I know. And what we know now is that prior to Tipperary, in other words, when they came to the United States, they were singing a song, "It's a long way from Tipperary." Well, let me tell you something, it's a long way from longer than Tipperary, because prior to Tipperary, Ronald Reagan's ancestors may well have been in Israel. Another famous Irish president was John F. Kennedy. And he was another prominent American president of Irish descent. He displayed the warrior spirit of which the Irish are known following the torpedo attack on PT-109. And if you're old enough to remember, you know that he swam a long distance, pulling a wounded crew member in his teeth, thus saving his life. Our current president is also of Irish descent, and his ancestors were actual Irish shoemakers. My Irish ancestors were from Galway County. Galway County. And I have some cousins who visited there and actually met some of our relatives. And how many have ever read the Galway Chronicles? Oh, you are missing a treat there. They are a series of books. It's called the Zion Chronicles and the Zion Covenant. There's the Zion Chronicles, which is a group of, I think, 5 books. Then there's the Zion Covenant, which are 4 books. And then there's a series of, I think, 3 called the Galway Chronicles, Galway Chronicles. And they are by Brock, B-R-O-C-K, and Bodie, B-O-D-I-E, Taney, T-H-O-E-N-E, T-H-O-E-N-E. Bodie, B-O-D-I-E, and Brock, B-R-O-C-K, Taney, their husband and wife team. And what was fascinating is that they told the story of Galway County and the horrific way the Irish were treated. And I'm sure they would have been favorite books of my grandfather, because I constantly heard about how the Irish were mistreated by the British. It seemed like every time he wanted to talk, that's what he talked about. And he'd always, I was the oldest, so I got hit with more of this than anybody else. And he said, "Don't you ever forget how they treated us." I mean, okay. So guess what? Here I am. I'm old. I mean, now I'm old. I'm way, way, way older than he was when he died. Way older. And I've never forgotten it. So proud. You know. But those books were fascinating, and I know my mother loved reading them too. Now, while the tribe of Asher was dominant in Ireland, we said dominant, so it's the major tribe in Ireland, while there are obviously members of the other tribes there. Asher also had offshoots in Switzerland. And you understand the proximity. And they had offshoots in Scotland, Wales, Scandinavia, and also Belgium, B-E-L-G-I-U-M. They had offshoots in Belgium. So you can kind of know where Asher ended up. Any questions about the tribe of Asher? Any questions about the tribe of Asher before we move on to the tribe of Issachar? Any? Okay. Does everyone have the notes for the tribe of Issachar? Anyone need notes? Good. Okay, I want us to look at the scriptures. And I want us first to go to the book of Numbers, the 26th chapter. I remember being at camp one time, and I said, "Well, you're going to go to the book of Numbers." And someone kept saying to me, "Well, I know, but what book? We know Numbers, but what book?" And I said, "The book of Numbers." And I'm going over and over, and they said, "Yeah, we know you're going to give us Numbers, but what's the book?" It is the book. So I want the book of Numbers, and then we'll give you the numbers in the book of Numbers. So we're going to go to Numbers 26, 23. The sons of Issachar, according to their families, were of Tola, the family of the Tolaites, of Pua, the family of the Punites, of Jashub, the family of the Jashubites, of Shimron, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar according to those who were numbered of them. And there, at this time of this numbering, there were 64,300. Now let's turn back in your Bibles to Genesis 46. Verse 13. Because then you can see these. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Puva, Job, and Shimron. So the tribe of Issachar, along with the other Israelites, had been resettled by the Assyrians. The Assyrians came down, exiled them out of the northern kingdom of Israel. And so in the north, partly in the area known as Persia, which is, of course, today modern day Iran. So the Assyrians, because at that time the Assyrians had amassed all that land at that time. And then you know a little bit about, they and you had the Babylonians who overcame the Assyrians, and the Persians eventually overcame the Babylonians. So the people group known as the Sagarti were called Asakarta by the Persians. Again, same people group, given a different name. Why? Because, well, the Persians had their own language. And they were first spoken of in the Zagros Mountains of West Iran. So that's the first, if you're going to try to look at the history of these people, the first time you see a mention of the Asakarta or the Sagarti, the first time you ever see it in any history whatsoever of a people group was in the Zagros Mountains of West Iran. And when you look at these people, they appear to be identical with the tribe of Issachar. So you begin to trace, and then, well, this is where most of Issachar was exiled, and all of a sudden, out in this area of the Zagros Mountains appear these people called Asakarta. And you can kind of see Issachar, Asakarta, because if you see where that name would come from. Now there was a similar group called the Sagarusi, and guess what? They are located on the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea. Okay, so they're in that roughly the same area. And this people group, again, if you examine them, now when I'm talking about they're similar, they would study their language, okay, the language. They would study their culture, their habits, and so they would say, well, this group looks very much like this group, even they're called differently, but they have the roughly very identifiable language to each other. They have similar cultural habits. They have customs. And so they are very similar to the Sakaraukai, also known as Saraukai. And they became, not surprising, they became the ruling tribe among the Amerindian Scythians. Again, now we find them what? Ruling. The Sakaraukai are considered as an eastern branch. Okay, now remember we've looked at royal Scyths before, right? The western branches. Well, this group, the Sakaraukai, are considered an eastern branch of the royal Scyths. But there again, they're what? Royalty. And in the west, okay, they're Eastern Royal Scyths, but in the west they were centered in southern Russia. Now we're going to be getting to see a blending of tribes, a coming together, being conquered, not knowing they're conquering a family member. So the Sakaraukai, and sometimes they're known as Sorachi, together with the Amerindian Scythians and Goths, were conquered by the Asii. Now, who were the Asii? They were Ashur. They were Ashur. We just talked about that before we started Issachar. So basically, what happens? They were conquered by brethren. Didn't know they were brethren, but they were conquered. And the Asii who conquered them were believed to be related to the Aorsi, who obviously are a branch of the tribe of Ashur. So now again, what do you see? As they migrate, as they move further and further away from their place of exile, they begin to intermingle, they begin to conquer one another. But guess what? They're found together. So both the Orsi and Sirachi, but guess what? They were both found east and west of the Caspian Sea. So again, you're mingling with one another. Now, so we see that the same groups of peoples tended to appear in close proximity to each other, even though separate portions of these people groups were spread over wide areas. So even if they're spread over wide areas, guess what? They still appear close to each other. So they're close here, they're close here, they're close here. So everywhere they went, they were close with each other. Why? Because they're family. Even if they don't realize it, we're kind of like hanging with you. You're kind of like us. And isn't that true? You see that intermingling. The Asii have been identified with the Wusan of China. Again, I want you to see the wide variety of the tribes. Because God said what? I'm going to scatter you where? Across the face of the earth to the ends of the earth. And they're also with the Isidones. And all of a sudden, the Isidones first emerged in the area of Sarika in what is now eastern Siberia. So again, what I want you to see is not everybody went west at the same time. So they're found up in this area, east. And there's a book, The Bronze Age by de Rougemont. And this area was once much more inhabitable than it seems now. Because, everybody, when you think about Siberia, it's like, oh golly, the uninhabitable, cold, very difficult, hard. Remember where they put all their political prisoners, just send them to Siberia. But in the Bronze Age, de Rougemont says that this area was much more habitable. And at the time when the Isidones were living there, the land supported, and get this, an advanced civilization. It wasn't crude, it was pretty advanced. And a metallurgical industry. They were into metals. So the name Sarika is potentially, guess what, an inverted form of Issachar. Where I say you can kind of see that. Issachar, yes, Issachar. Now, in Sarika, which is today modern Siberia, and modern day Siberia is located east of Scythia, so it would be like off over here somewhere, okay? You've heard about Siberia. So in this area were found the Asmaria, and they have a name similar to that of Shimron, who was a son of Issachar. So again, they maintain you have these descendants, you see them attaching some of the name, even though they don't know, but it's passed on, and they have a form of it. The Ithaguri and the Thogara people groups were also in Sarika. And again, I'm giving you this so that if you want to look further, you can, because what's important linguistically, because remember, that's what we're looking for similarities too, linguistically. So the letters S, T, and TH were interchangeable at that time. So that time when the people were exiled into that area, S and T and TH were interchangeable, and therefore the names Ithaguri and Thagara are also forms of Issachar. Because guess what? S, T, and TH were all interchangeable. And that also helps us track the tribes a little bit. Okay, now I'm looking for names that are basically coming from this, and now I understand. The Tocharians, guess what? They settled in Finland. Finland. And they are also Issacharites. Again, we're looking at what? S, T, D, H. Okay. Now, for example, if you would take Sacharian and then look at it at Issachar, you're beginning to pick up, okay, because they're interchangeable. People groups called Thakori and Tokhari were found in the area of Khwarezmia, and isn't it just accidental? They're found east of the Caspian Sea, which is where they were exiled. And they just happened to be found in that same east area of the Caspian Sea where the Sakarakai of Issachar were located. It just happened to be located there, and then you're seeing these people groups. No, they're getting close to their family. Now, near Sarika, in the north, were the Abii Sithai from Job or Job. And Job or Job was the son of Issachar. We saw that Job was a son of Issachar. In Genesis 46:13, we read that. And it's kind of interesting because then you start looking, you start going west, and you see that the West Saxons in England, were called, of all things, they were called Abbas Marangani. And so the Abbas Marangani of England were more than likely a combination between descendants of Job of Issachar, Issachar, of Issachar, and Machir of Manasseh, Manasseh. So again, I want to pause here again and I want to show you. As they migrate, they start commingling, and then you're going to have a people group from the tribe of Issachar mingling with a people group of the tribe of Manasseh. And now you understand why, in the end time, it's going to take the Messiah to put them in their tribal allotments, because there's so much intermingling and commingling with one another. But they're all Israel. But he's going to say, well, he knows. You know, they don't even know. All they know is, okay, we're a people group, and I don't know. And now, and you understand why DNA may give you a people group in one of these people groups down the line, and you'll say, well, I don't know what tribe I'm in. Well, that's true, because there's been so much commingling with the tribes of Israel. Yeah. But the Messiah will know, and he said, well, you're this, and you're this, and you're this, and this is where you're going to rule and reign, and this is what's going to happen. Another people group who probably came from Job of Issachar are the Ubii, and they settled in Holland. Okay. Now, groups, I mean, again, this is one tribe, Issachar, we're finding, oh my goodness, they're here, and they're here, and they're here, and they're here, and then they're intermingling with these tribes. guess what? Guess who knows where every one of them is? God. He knows where every one of them is. And guess what? He has a plan. He's working his plan, and he will bring his plan to completion. Now, groups from Issachar were present among the Anglo-Saxons. They were also present with the Celtic Galatian groups. The Scurry were a group among the Galatians. And we know the Galatians come from, they moved westward from Phrygian in Turkey. In Turkey, of course, on this map you see it as Galatia, that's Turkey. So you see the Mediterranean, and Turkey, of course, Galatia, it was called Galatia. It's Turkey, and it's located between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. So the Scurry belonged to Issachar. And again, you can kind of, even that, you can see it inversion, which many times happen. Because we said Isaac, you had the inversion into Saka. But still, that was just an inversion, but it was coming from Isaac. And again, we go back to what God said. God said to Abraham, in Isaac your descendants will be called. So if God declares a thing, it's declared. Yes. That's why I say we can declare the word and know that it will come to pass. Why? Because it's God's word. And God keeps his word. Always keeps his word. So they were referred to as Galatai or Galatians by the Greeks. Greek called them Galatians. Now the Galatai belonged to, now here again, we're going to see this kind of thing again, the interweaving of tribes. The Galatai belonged to Gilead of Machir, Machir, in Manasseh, in the land of Israel. So again, we're seeing what? We're seeing now, again, Manasseh intermingling with Issachar. So we're seeing them in different places, these two tribes kind of commingling. Now this is what I want you to see. Before the Assyrian exile, so now we're talking about in the northern kingdom of Israel. When they were in the northern kingdom of Israel with their capital Samaria. Before the Assyrian exile, the tribe of Manasseh just happened to neighbor the tribe of Issachar, who also shared a border of sorts with the tribe of Gad, G-A-D. So what I want you to begin to see, yes, they're traveling. So they travel and they get here, and all of a sudden, what do you have? Issachar and Manasseh close together. And then you go a little bit further, and different times, different places, but they get together, and guess what? Manasseh and Issachar. I don't believe that just happened accidentally. It was just... Okay. Any questions on note 7? Comments? Okay, later, the Scurry of Issachar were close to the Bastarnai on the shore of the North Sea. Now remember what I just said to you. I said that you had the tribes of Issachar and Manasseh getting together, and also they also shared a border prior to the exile with the tribe of Gad. So you'll see Manasseh, Issachar, and Gad in close proximity prior to the exile in the northern kingdom of Israel. And then now, you're seeing that the Scurry of Issachar were close to the Bastarnai on the shore of the North Sea, And the Bastarnai were descended from Etzbon, guess what? Son of Gad. So now again, you see them getting close together as they move. So now you see, back in Israel, the kingdom of Israel, Gad and Issachar were close together. Now you see them in the area of the North Sea, and you will see portions of the tribes of Gad and Issachar are once again seen together. And there are accounts that state that immigrants from Sweden, Sweden, from Sweden or Goths, settled in Switzerland. And these immigrants were more than likely, these immigrants that went into Switzerland, were the scurry of Issachar. But now, here's what happened. They were definitely from the tribe of Issachar, but they attached themselves, who had attached themselves to descendants of Gad. In other words, they joined it again. Now you have tribes of Israel, as they're moving and migrating, they attach themselves to one another. And so now you have the members of the tribe of Issachar attaching themselves to descendants of the tribe of Gad. Again, you see them close together again. And it really is true that birds of a feather flock together, and they were flocking together. And even though their descendants even today may not know, they may know they're Israel for a lot of reasons, but they don't know that they have attached themselves a long time ago to their brethren. Okay, I might be. No, I really can't. Well, I went over my time. Sorry. I mean, I get into this and I can stay here all night, but I'm not going to keep you here all night. Okay, so I'm gonna keep Puva and Fuva, and again, it's because now how many remember from Hebrew? I know it was before the flood. We took Hebrew, but the letters Pei and Fei are what? The same letter. Okay. So that's why you get Fuva and Puva. And Puni and Funi. This is probably, you have more fun in this class probably in any class you've ever taken. So next week we will start on Puni and Funi. And we'll look at where these people went. Important. Thank you for tuning into the class tonight. I hope, again, it's amazing what God has done. God said he had a plan, and we are sitting here, and I don't know, sometimes overwhelmed with the awesomeness of God's plan, and he's going to bring it all together, and is. We are living closer to that time than ever before. There's so much happening in the world today. And guess what? I want you to know, and don't forget, whatever you're going through, God is still on the throne. He's still in control. And we can declare the truth of his word. So what do we declare? The word of God. Yes. Because this word is true. This is the plan of God. He's going to bring it to fruition. And guess what? We are so blessed to be alive at this time. So thank you for joining us from wherever in the world you're joining us. Thank you for those of you who made the effort to come out and tonight to be in person in spite of the air quality that we have. And let's just pray that that air quality will be cleaned quickly. And we thank the Lord that he brought you here safely, and we've all been breathing pretty good in here. So take the good news of Jesus wherever you go. We will be looking at you again this time next week. Have a wonderful, blessed time studying the blessed Word of God.